John Kerry to step into searing China heat as world's two biggest polluters try to fix fractured ties. U.S. climate envoy John Kerry is visiting China to restart long-stalled climate negotiations from July 16 to 19. Brendan Smialowski/AFP, Getty Images. Hong Kong. CNN. When John Kerry heads to Beijing Sunday for a long-awaited trip to restart climate negotiations, the U.S. climate envoy will step off the plane into one of the hottest summers ever recorded in the Chinese capital. Since 1951, Beijing has seen temperatures breaching 104 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius, on 11 days, with almost half of them occurring in the past few weeks, including a new record for the city's hottest day in June. In the United States, an extreme heat wave is also swelling, with temperatures in the southwest soaring as high as 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. It's a global problem. The planet's hottest day ever was recorded for 4 straight days earlier this month. If anything, this is the situation that should most bring China and the U.S. back on the same page, said Li Shua, senior global policy advisor at Greenpeace China. Regardless of their political differences, the impacts of climate change have now become a common experience for both countries. It's no longer a hypothetical crisis or analytical challenge, but a living reality that can be felt through the skin. As the world's two biggest polluters, with China's emissions of planet-heating pollution more than double those of the U.S., the two countries account for nearly 40% of global emissions. This means attempts to stave off the worst impacts of the climate crisis will need to involve these two powerhouse nations drastically cutting fossil fuel production, yet climate cooperation between them has been largely frozen for nearly a year amid heightened geopolitical tensions. Last August, Beijing cut off climate talks with Washington in protest at then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in the middle of the worst heat wave China had seen in 6 decades. More than 2 months of scorching heat dried up reservoirs, killed crops and livestock, crippled power supplies and led to rolling blackouts in some of the largest and most prosperous Chinese metropolises. This year, sweltering temperatures have arrived even earlier, impacting hundreds of millions of residents and again putting huge strains on the country's electricity grid. China Energy Investment Corporation, the world's largest generator of coal-fired power, said its production of electricity reached a historic high on Monday. The unrelenting heat waves highlight the urgency for the U.S. and China to resume cooperation, as the unfolding climate crisis will not wait for the two countries to fix their relations first, experts say. The suspension of climate talks set a very bad precedent, Li said. Tensions in bilateral relations shouldn't stand in the way of climate discussions. There needs to be more resilience. A symbolic trip. Kerry is the third U.S. cabinet member to visit China in recent weeks, as the Biden administration steps up efforts to mend fractured communications and stabilize tense relations with Beijing. Last month, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Beijing, and U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met with China's Premier Li Qiang last week. On Thursday, Blinken met with China's top diplomat Wang Yi on the sidelines of a summit in Jakarta. In the wake of COVID and ever-worsening U.S.-China relations, climate change promises to be an area where productive collaboration can benefit our two countries and the rest of the world, said Alex Wang, a professor of law at the University of California, Los Angeles and an expert on Chinese climate policy. Each country now has major programs in place to invest in and promote decarbonization, but neither side is moving quickly enough, he added. Kerry, 79, has traveled to China twice since being appointed as U.S. President Joe Biden's special climate envoy. He visited Shanghai in April 2021 and Tianjin 5 months later, amid China's rigid zero-COVID restrictions. This time, Kerry will spend 4 days in Beijing to meet senior Chinese officials. Secretary Kerry aims to engage with the PRC on addressing the climate crisis, including with respect to increasing implementation and ambition and promoting a successful COP28, the U.S. State Department said in a statement Wednesday, referring to China by its formal title, the People's Republic of China. China's Ministry of Ecology and Environment said the two sides will have an in-depth exchange of views on cooperation to address climate change.